More recently, a French admirer of Father Faber has made a systematic treatise on purgatory based on modern revelations. The book is called Purgatory According to the Revelations of the Saints by the Abbé Louvet. I have formed a high opinion both of the piety of the Abbé and of his literary honesty. I praise the latter quality because it is commonly lightly regarded in Roman Catholic works, of which edification is the main object. Thus, for instance, anyone must be mad who would trust St. Liguori for a reference. If the saint finds anything ascribed to St. Bernard, or thinks he remembers that he does, which is what, in his opinion, St. Bernard ought to have said, he puts it without scruple into his Glories of Mary. And I fancy he would have thought anyone very unreasonable who should have suggested that he ought to give himself the trouble of looking into St. Bernard's works to try whether the passage was there at all, and whether among the genuine or the spurious works. And similarly with the anecdotes which he relates in such numbers. If a story is good and edifying, he does not waste his time in trifling investigations, whether there is a particle of historical evidence for the truth of the story. Louvet, on the other hand, inspires me with confidence that his quotations have been correctly given, and that he has taken all the pains he says he has to put aside every apocryphal and doubtful revelation, and to state nothing that is not attested by canonized saints. On purgatory, more than on any other subject, the evidence of revelations deserves to be listened to, for the whole faith of the Church of Rome on this subject has been built upon revelations, or, as we should call it in plain English, on ghost stories. For hundreds of years, the Church seems to have known little or nothing on the subject. Even still, the East has lagged sadly behind the Westerner knowledge, and the reason is that the chief source of Western information is a Latin book, the Dialogues of Gregory the Great, a work of which the genuineness has been denied by some, merely because it seemed to them incredible that so sensible a man should have written so silly a book. But no one acquainted with the eccentricities of the human intellect can rely on such an argument in the face of positive evidence the other way. Gregory, believing 12 or 13 centuries ago that the end of the world was then near at hand, and that the men of his age, by reason of their nearness to the next world, could see things in it which had been invisible to their predecessors, collected a number of tales of apparitions which, being received on his authority, have been the real foundation of Western belief in purgatory. And so Father Faber quotes a namesake of his as saying that although Gregory was a saint who should be loved and honored on many accounts, yet on none more than this, because he had so lucidly and transparently handed down to us the doctrine of the purgatorial fire. For he thought that if Gregory had not told us so many things of the holy souls, the devotions of subsequent ages would have been much colder in their belief. I don't see, then, why our knowledge of purgatory should not be enlarged from the same source from which it was first communicated, and why Louvet should not be regarded as doing a good work in collecting all the information that had been received from ghosts who have appeared since Pope Gregory's time. For it is not reasonable to believe that means of communication with the other world which existed in the 7th century have been since completely stopped. Father Faber also says, on the subject matter of purgatory we may, with less scruple, make use of such revelations from the example of so grave an authority as Cardinal Bellarmine himself, who in his treatise on purgatory, as I have already said, always adds some private revelations as a distinct head of proof, unquote. It appears that it is not only that many ghosts have returned to tell of their sufferings, but more saints than one have been permitted to descend to visit the purgatorial regions and have given us, as Louvet assures us, a complete map of the place. Complete map. It appears that purgatory is but one division of the subterranean regions. At the center of the earth is the place of the damned. Above it lies purgatory, divided into 3 regions for the special torments of each, of which I must refer you to Louvet. Above purgatory is the limbus infantium, or limbo, inhabited by unbaptized infants. Above that, the limbus patrum, now empty, but formerly dwelt in by the souls of the patriarchs until the descent of our Lord to release them. Of course, limbo is now gone again today. I am sorry to tell you, though you might have gathered it from something that I have already said, that the lowest division is largely tenanted by the souls of priests and bishops, monks and nuns. The bishops with mitres of fire on their heads, a burning cross in their hands, and clad in a chasuble of flames. But it will shock you to hear that in that region are the souls of many popes, who, with all the treasure of the church at their command, were either so thoughtless or so unselfish as to make no provision for their own needs. For example, the Venerable Pius VI in this life had an unusual share of suffering. He had been dragged from his home by the impious hands of the French Revolution, outraged ignominiously in his twofold dignity of pontiff and king, dragged from city to city as a criminal, and he died the death of a confessor of the faith in 1799. He had done great things as an administrator, struggling with the apostolic intrepidity against Gallicanism and Josephism, the two precursors of the Revolution, and in short, his long pontificate of 24 years was one of the greatest in church history. Yet, in 1816, 17 years after his death, Marie Taggy saw his soul come to the door of purgatory and be sent back again into the abyss, his expiation not being yet finished. How long is it still to last? That is the secret of God. We know from the same source that Pius VII, who suffered so much at the hands of the first Napoleon, and who was so worthy and holy a pontiff that he won the respect even of unbelievers, remained in purgatory nearly 5 years. Leo XII escaped after a few months on account of his eminent piety and the short time he had held the awful responsibility of the pontificate. I will not delay here to speak of Benedict VIII, but will go on to tell what, as Louvet says, is really frightful, and what one would not dare to believe if we had not as guarantees St. Luitgard, whose prudence and discretion are known, and Cardinal Bellarmine, who, having studied as a theologian all the details of this revelation, declares that he cannot doubt it, and that it makes him tremble for himself. That the great Pontiff Innocent III, who held the Lateran Council, who passed for a saint in the eyes of men and did so much for the reform of the Church, appeared to St. Luitgard, all surrounded by flames, and on her expressing her astonishment, informed her that he had narrowly escaped hell, and that he had been condemned to suffer in purgatory till the end of the world.